Welcome to a class on drama and theatre studies. In this video, we will be discussing an essay that is prescribed for study for second semester MA English Language and Literature, Kannur University. This is a case study by Gary J. Williams, and the title is Modernism in Chekov, Pirandello, and Beckett. So, at the outset, the author, the writer of the essay says that by the end of the 20th century, modernism was dying out and postmodernism was used more widely, especially by the 1960s. Modernism gave way to postmodernism. So, we can say that modernism belonged to the period between the 100 years between 1870 and 1970. When it comes to modern drama, we can say that modern drama showcase the human condition in a vivid manner. And to illustrate this, the author takes three plays as examples for this case study, which are Anton Chekhov's Uncle Vanya, Luigi Pirandello's Six Characters in Search of an Author, and Samuel Beckett's Endgame. So we here the author actually says that a modern drama is where we can actually see it happening, how human life has been affected in the modern age. Uh, and coming to modern drama, this term is actually widely used for the works of major Western playwrights who shared certain qualities, certain characteristics, like they departed sharply from the established theatre forms. Mainly, they rejected the traditional notions of a compassionate creator. So, we had this belief that the world was created by a creator, and the creator is compassionate about his creations. But actually, in the modern drama, one of the important beliefs was that there is no compassionate creator in the center of the universe, at the center of the universe. And there is nobody to give human life order and significance. That is one of the main things rejected by modern drama. This is what we can see in comparing these three works created by modern dramatists. So, modern dramatists believe that there was no divinity at the center of the universe that shapes our ends. Why did they come into believing this? There are many reasons why they believe that there was no divine presence at the center of the universe. Many are listed here. Let's see one by one. First of all, the life in Europe was filled with political revolutions happening here and there, especially after industrial revolution. There were a lot of small and large revolutions happening around them. So, because of this, they tended to believe that if there is a compassionate creator, these revolutions wouldn't happen. Another thing is theory of the evolution of species. When that belief came, there was a proof, that theory came, there was a proof that there is a natural selection process of creation, not the intervention of a god. Another event is Marx and Engels' criticism against Christianity and capitalism. And again, Friedrich Nietzsche proved that Christianity had no basis for moral values. We don't have to depend on moral values looking at Christianity. And again, Sigmund Freud, he located that human identity is within the conscious mind and unconscious primitive desires and repressed memories. So we didn't know where the seat of human identity was before that. And Sigmund Freud located human identity by um, forming division, by saying that human mind is divided into conscious, subconscious, and unconscious minds, and our identity is actually in both conscious mind and unconscious mind, where we actually suppress our desires and memories, and that is where our identity springs from. Another reason for believing that there is no God was the effect of the two world wars. If there was a compassionate God at the center of the universe, human life would have a little more dignity than at the time of the world wars, when people were treated as animals or worse. And again, Holocaust was one event where human dignity was completely unthinkable. So these are the reasons why modern drama uh, believe that, or modern dramatists believe that, there was no divinity at the center of the universe. Next, we come to look at the reasons for pursuing this case study. First of all, this case study seeks to undertake very close descriptions of the language used in the plays and the theatrical imagery used in the plays. So, what the writer does is he compares these three plays to illustrate the modernist vision that there is no divinity at the center of universe, but there are certain limitations to this case study of this case study. For example, comparisons with other plays are not performed in this particular essay. And then these plays are regarded as modern, and postmodern tendencies in these plays are not taken into consideration for study. And then again, the influence of one author over the other among these three playwrights, that is also not taken into consideration. And there were other approaches and methods of analysis which could have been undertaken, but that is also not done in this particular case study. The first play for analysis in this case study is Uncle Vanya by Anton Chekhov. So, this is a frame from this play performed by some artists. So, Uncle Vanya, first we will look at the plot. That is exactly what the writer does in the essay. And then we will move on to the analysis part. So, Uncle Vanya is about a celebrated and self absorbed professor. He's a professor of fine arts at St. Petersburg. His name is Alexander Serebryakov. He retires to live on the country estate of his deceased first wife. So the inhabitants in this country estate are his second wife Yelena, who is a 27-year-old beautiful woman, and he has a daughter named Sonia. His daughter from his first wife, almost the same age as his second wife. And another person living in this country estate is Maria Voynitskaya, the mother of his first wife, who idealizes him. And another character is Ivan Petrovich Voynitsky, or Uncle Vanya, the titular character, his late wife's brother. And a visitor often comes to this particular house, his estate. His name is Dr. Astrov. He is a physician. He is undergoing midlife crisis at the moment. So Sonia and Vanya, uncle and niece, they actually manage the estate very diligently. That is when this professor retires to the countryside, and Vanya, he had been idealizing the professor, his brother-in-law, for a long time, but now he has realized that the professor is just a fraud. He's pretending to be an artist. He doesn't have any original ideas. He only borrows ideas from others. And also, we know this fact about Uncle Vanya, that he's attracted to the young and beautiful Yelena. Yelena thinks of Uncle Vanya as a foolish person, and Yelena is actually pursuing a relationship with the physician, Dr. Astrov. They are having a relationship on the side. So we can see in a scene that Vanya is bringing flowers to Yelena, but he only witnesses her in an embrace with Dr. Astrov. Yelena is also not in love with her aging husband. She was at first a little intrigued about her husband, but now that he's aging and he's getting to be boring, she doesn't love her husband. She's pursuing a relationship with this other man. She doesn't find it liberating to be idealized by the physician or Vanya. At a particular moment, she even admits to Sonia that she has been playing a minor role all her life. She wants to do a major role in some time of this life, and she says that she's unhappy even with all her beauty and qualities. Such a character is also unhappy in this play. She expresses her fatalism. She knows that that won't be possible. She's destined to do minor role in her life. Sonia, at the same time, the professor's daughter, she is hoping for a romantic future with Dr. Astrov, but Dr. Astrov doesn't have any eyes for her. So the professor one day he announces that he has decided to sell the estate to finance his future. He doesn't even think about the inhabitants in the house, especially Uncle Vanya, who has been taking care of the estate as his own. That is the one thing he has been doing since he was a young man. He doesn't even realize how selfish this move is. This actually riles up Vanya, and he thinks that he has wasted his life taking care of the estate for somebody else, only for them to sell the estate. He takes a revolver and fires two shots at the professor, but it is a very comic scene in which he misses both the shots. Finally, the professor and Yelena, they decide to leave the estate without selling it, and Vanya promises that everything will be as it was. That is very important to note. Everything will be as it was. Astrov finally says to Yelena in a very comical manner, Finita la commedia, means the comedy ends, as if it is a very dramatic thing to say to somebody in real life. So he was considering to go on an adventure. He takes some maps and all that, but then again the physician puts it away. He goes back to his mundane life. So we can say at the end of the play nothing actually changes. Uncle Vanya and Sonia are doing exactly the same thing they have been doing all their life. And we are also shown traces of the ecosystem in the countryside. It suggests a death of life. Nothing new has been created. No new life has been created in the surroundings also. An old nurse in the household winds up her yarn, and a candle is also lit at the end of the play. And Sonia tries to comfort Vanya, and she tells him the need to keep on living endless rows of days and evenings until God will show pity on them and let them rest. So nothing has changed for these characters. So this is a modern play in which nothing is actually changing from beginning to end, although there was a flicker of hope that some other change is going to happen, but at the end nothing happens. Let's come to the analysis part and find out what the essayist, what the critic actually deciphered from this play. So nothing is happening in the unfulfilled lives of the characters. That is reminiscent of theater of the absurd. In theater of the absurd also, nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody goes. We have discussed that in class. And we can see that Anton Chekhov here mixes realism and a comic perspective on the anguish of the characters. We can see that Sonia, Vanya, Astrov, they all hate life. They have this existential angst inside them. But that anguish is given a comic perspective by Chekhov here. By mixing realism and comedy, Chekhov is actually trying to meditate on the human condition in the modern world. Somewhere a flicker of hope is given because of the beauty of Yelena. That is a flicker of hope. There is something is going to come out of this beauty. And then the professor has fame. Maybe some changes are going to happen because of the fame of the professor. And then again, physicians, idealism. But these qualities doesn't actually help the characters gain any everlasting fulfillment in their life. So these are the findings of the critic at the end of the play. Next play the critic analyzes is Six Characters in Search of an Author. It is a unique modern play, and we will discuss the summary first, just as the critic is doing in the essay. The subtitle of this play is A Comedy in the Making. That is very important. The setting is a theater. You can see that this is actually a theater within the theater. A meta theatrical structure is given to the play. It is a theater where an acting company is actually rehearsing a comedy by Pirandello himself, mixing it up. And then suddenly a strange family of six people, the father, the mother, the stepdaughter, the son, the boy, and the child, they come in. They are seeking an author to write the play of their lives. They have a story. They were created by an author, and then the author has abandoned them without giving them a drama. So the manager is intrigued and he decides to hear the drama of their lives out. So here a strategy is used by the playwright, basically throughout the play, that of philosophical discussion. At times there is no action in this play, only discussion by using words is pursued by the playwright. Often the father is the one who is discussing things philosophically about life and all that. So he wants the spectators to be, we can say that Pirandello wants the spectators to be intellectually proactive while watching the video. They should constantly be thinking about what is happening beyond the surface realities of life. They should seek metaphorical meaning of what is happening in the life and these occurrences on the stage. The characters, then we can say that they are very much like the characters in the family in Uncle Vanya. The father, when we come to their what happened in their life, the father and mother and son, they were living happily. Then the father deliberately abandons his wife and his son. The mother is recently widowed from a marriage, a second marriage, which was arranged by the father. She has mothered three children of her own from the second marriage: the stepdaughter, the boy, 14-year-old boy, and the child, a young girl of 4 years old. So, after the death of the father 2 months back, the stepdaughter had to go into prostitution to support her family. And through coincidence, she ends up being solicited by the father at the brothel. And the father comes to know about the financial situation of his family, of the mother's family, and then the father takes them back to his own house with where his son is also living. So coincidentally, the entire family is reunited, and the father and stepdaughter feel an urge to play out the drama of their lives, because the father wants to get at the cause of his sufferings. He wants people to realize why he ended up committing near incest with his stepdaughter. He wants to justify himself by reiterating what happened in their life. And the stepdaughter wants to publicly shame the father for the near incest encounter. The manager hears out the entire drama of their lives and sets the first act. The first act is happening in Madame Pache's boutique, and the father's encounter with the stepdaughter. And then he's arranging the second act in the garden with a fountain and all that. Then we witness the action turning into horror. The child is suddenly found dead. She's drowned in the fountain, and the boy is also found dead moments later after we hear a shot ringing out. He has shot himself. He was holding a revolver in the first act also. So the play ends in confusion over these events. We are utterly confused as spectators at the end of these events, whether these happenings, the deaths and all these other happenings, actually happened or whether they are a make believe. So, coming to the analysis part, this play is a part of a trilogy of Pirandello plays that takes place in theaters. There are two other plays that takes place in theaters. In this and the other plays, Pirandello actually, what he masterfully does is, sometimes we ourselves as readers or spectators, we are not aware of whether what is happening in front of us is reality or just appearance. So the boundaries between appearance and reality are blurred by Pirandello. And sometimes they even overlap. Appearance and reality appear at the same time. And then the spectator questions their own. We are watching this play, we question our own constructions of truth, whether we are living in a real life or a make believe life. The characters in this play are not really given proper names except for one person. The mother is Amalia, but then again, the manager says that that doesn't mean anything on the stage. So means that they are incomplete, undefined characters because their author created them and abandoned them. The relationships within the family are also broken hopelessly. There is no way that they can function together as a family now. The son doesn't recognize the father or the mother because he has lived his own life since he was 2 years old. And the mother has been away from the father for a while. So she doesn't recognize him as her husband. So there is no internal relationship between this so-called family. And another powerful tool used by Pirandello is taboo. Incest is a taboo in most cultures, even though there is no blood relation between the father and the stepdaughter. The incestuous encounter that occurs uh, is when the stepdaughter is in mourning clothes. She's wearing black clothes. She's mourning for the death of her father. This actually mocks the very dignity of life. Is there no respect for the human life that passed? Are we do we have such depravity that we are even forcing a young woman into prostitution, a young woman who is mourning the death of her father? And that too, she is soliciting prostitution with her stepfather. And when it comes to Madame Pache, she is presented as a caricaturish figure. Her clothes are loud, her makeup is loud. She is actually appearing as a parody of the sisters of fate in classic mythology. In Greek mythology, there are three sisters who weave the thread of life. They spin, weave, and cut from the loom of cloth the thread of human life and destiny. We can say that this Madame Pache is actually a parody of those three sisters. So at the end of the play, the death of the children, two children die. They suggest that any possible hope for a new life was from those two children. They were still untarnished by the world, but those two children succumbed to death. So that suggests that a new life in the modern age might not be possible. The possibility to create a new play is also not possible, because by the end of the play, the manager also shoos these characters away from the stage, from the theater. So, no new life is possible, no new play is also not possible, which can make sense of the lives of the six characters. The family, I think they might be, the other things, the family might be eternally playing the same scenes over and over again, searching for a redemptive meaning of the occurrences in their life. And they are being watched by an indifferent universe that suggests that there is no creator at the center of this universe. Play for analysis is Endgame by Samuel Beckett. So, coming to a summary of Endgame, the important characters in Endgame are Ham, who is blind and he is confined to a wheelchair, and his attendant Clove, and they both are occupying a cell-like bare interior. Also, additionally, you can see that in this image, you can see an old man in a tar can, in a barrel waiting there. So there is an old father and mother in similar barrels waiting for their death also. So in this play, we can see that these two characters, they speak in very short sparse sentences and phrases, and they are recycling routines. They are doing the same thing over and over again. And there is a window on one side of the room, and Clove climbs the ladder to look out of the high window with his telescope. But most often he either forgets to take the telescope, or he forgets to move the ladder from one window to another. So there is nothing, even when Clove looks through the telescope, there is nothing but gray in sight outside the window. So we can, it's very much evident that Clove is a slave to Ham, and he's always following the latter's commands, and he pushes Ham's wheelchair around the stage, around the room. So sometimes Ham wants to feel the wall, so Clove pushes him to the wall and then back to the center. And Ham is obsessed with being right at the center of the room. So he's just blindly, Clove just blindly follows the commands of Ham. And we can very much come into the conclusion that they are destined to their roles. Ham is a person who is blind, he cannot stand, and Clove cannot sit. He keeps on walking with great pain in his legs. And again, the elderly parents, Nag and Nell, they are waiting in their barrels for their deaths, and Nag is repeating the same story of the tailor over and over again. And this story also points to the imperfection of the world. You that story that Nag keeps on telling about a tailor. So the story goes like this. This is the essay that you have to learn. When an enraged customer complains that the tailor has taken 3 months to do his striped trousers, while God made the world in 6 days, the tailor replies, "But my dear sir, look at the world and look at my trousers." So, see, the story is like this. A tailor took 3 months to create the perfect trousers, a work of art, whereas God took 6 days to create the entire world, and the world itself is flawed. So, there is a deeper metaphorical meaning that the world is imperfect, but we are doomed to live in this world. All these nitbits, nothing is actually going on in this play, also. Ham says that the end is in the beginning and yet you go on. So they are in their cycle of whatever they are doing, they are doing that over and over again. And that is when Clove finds a flea on himself. And Ham is worried that humanity may start again from that fly and we have to quash that fly. So Clove, when he looks through the telescope, he spies a little boy and he thinks of him as a potential procreator. So this might be like a world, like a futuristic world where no life is there outside this room. And there is suddenly the sight of a boy, and they are afraid that life may actually start from this procreator, even through a flea. So in the last scene, Chloe wants to leave the room. He stands at the door with the coat, with his coat and suitcase. He wants to leave the room, and he's not acknowledging Ham's calls. Ham is ritualistically putting his handkerchief over his eyes. He is already blind. He doesn't have to blind himself. So the audience is aware that Clove will not leave because he cannot leave. The suffering will continue. So Clove's final line in the play is finished. It's finished, nearly finished. It must be nearly finished. It is a reiteration of the last words of Christ as he suffered on the cross. So the suffering is never coming to an end. We just have a small glimmer of hope that it is almost finished, but the finishing line is uh, becoming distant, more and more distant to us. So that's a summary of Endgame. And coming to the analysis part of Endgame performed by the writer of this essay, we can see that unlike the six characters of Pirandello and the characters from Uncle Vanya, the characters of Endgame, they are aware of the indifference of the universe towards their plight. From the start of the play, they are aware of this indifference. They know that they have been sentenced to the cyclical life. They are supposed to live the cyclical life. Just like the six characters, they are living the cyclical life. They want to perform their drama so they can find some answer, a redemptive answer to their problems. But um, they are not aware that it is not coming to an end. So, anyway, these characters, Ham and Clove, they know that they are sentenced to their cyclical life. They have to suffer the purposeless existence each and every day, and they don't actually seek any deeper meaning to their sufferings, and they have no expectations of salvation, or they don't search for an author to write their story or anything like that. So they realize that the world's history has never been different. Life in this room is just a microcosm of what is happening in the world outside. Whatever is happening in the larger world outside, lifelessness, repetition, boredom, ennui, exact same thing is happening in the room also. The room actually stands for the entire world outside it. So the last scene and the words suggest that the suffering is not yet finished and it will never finish. So that's the analysis of Endgame. And coming to the conclusion of this essay, we can see that the author understands that in these three plays, the playwrights use different methods to scrutinize the desolation of humankind, which is abandoned by its creator. In all three plays, we can see that there is a creator, but the creator is non-existent at this point of time. Nothing happens to Uncle Vanya and Sonia in their life. The same old boring routine is going to continue. Everything will remain the same, Uncle Vanya says. The six characters, they are forever destined to play on their same roles, especially going through the trauma and crisis of having to go through the same thing over and over again. And because they have been abandoned by their author also, somebody created them and abandoned them. There is a literal creator there in six characters. And coming to the last play also, we know that they are living in a routine, a cycle. Every single day it is going to happen the same way. The only difference is they are aware that there is no creator, there is no hope. So when it moves from Chekhov to Beckett, the picture actually becomes darker. Chekhov's play is actually a bit realistic. There are real life like characters. But in Beckett's work, the characters actually appear dehumanized. It's almost as if we are seeing a caricature. They are dehumanized to portray the effects of modern desolation and despair. Thus, we can reach the conclusion that in these plays, the same thing is reiterated, that there is absolutely no presence of divinity in the modern world, and modern drama is able to prove that. So that's it about this essay. Thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful for you. Have a good day.